Lewis Moore's doubts respecting the immediate evacuation of Fieldhead by Mr. Simpson turned out to be perfectly well-founded. The very next day after the grand quarrel about Sir Philip Nunneley, a sort of reconciliation was patched up between uncle and niece. Shirley, who could never find it in her heart to be or to seem inhospitable, except in the single instance of Mr. Don, begged the whole party to stay a little longer. She begged in such earnest it was evident she wished it for some reason. They took her at her word. Indeed, the uncle could not bring himself to leave her quite unwatched, at full liberty to marry Robert Moore as soon as that gentleman should be able. Mr. Simpson piously prayed this might never be the case, to reassert his supposed pretensions to her hand. They all stayed. In his first rage against all the house of Moore, Mr. Simpson had so conducted himself towards Mr. Lewis that gentleman, patient of labor or suffering, but intolerant of coarse insolence, had promptly resigned his post, and could now be induced to resume and retain it only till such time as the family should quit Yorkshire. Mrs. Simpson's entreaties prevailed with him thus far. His own attachment to his pupil constituted an additional motive for concession, and probably he had a third motive, stronger than either of the other two. Probably he would have found it very hard indeed to leave Fieldhead just now. Things went on for some time pretty smoothly. Miss Keelder's health was re-established, her spirits resumed their flow. Moore had found means to relieve her from every nervous apprehension, and, indeed, from the moment of giving him her confidence, every fear seemed to have taken wing. Her heart became as lightsome, her manner as careless, as those of a little child, that, thoughtless of its own life or death, trusts all responsibility to its parents. He and William Farron, through whose medium he made inquiries concerning the state of Phoebe, agreed in asserting that the dog was not mad, that it was only ill usage which had driven her from home, for it was proved that her master was in the frequent habit of chastising her violently. Their assertion might or might not be true. The groom and gamekeeper affirmed to the contrary, both asserting that, if hers was not a clear case of hydrophobia, there was no such disease. But to this evidence Lewis Moore turned an incredulous ear. He reported to Shirley only what was encouraging. She believed him, and, right or wrong, it is certain that in her case the bite proved innocuous. November passed, December came. The Simpsons were now really departing. It was incumbent on them to be at home by Christmas. Their packages were preparing, they were to leave in a few days. One winter evening, during the last week of their stay, Lewis Moore again took out his little blank book, and discoursed with it as follows. She is lovelier than ever. Since that little cloud was dispelled, all the temporary waste and wanness have vanished. It was marvelous to see how soon the magical energy of youth raised her elastic and revived her blooming. After breakfast this morning, when I had seen her, and listened to her, and, so to speak, felt her, in every sentient atom of my frame, I passed from her sunny presence into the chill drawing-room. Taking up a little gilt volume, I found it to contain a selection of lyrics. I read a poem or two, whether the spell was in me or in the verse I know not, but my heart filled genially, my pulse rose. I glowed, notwithstanding the frost air. I, too, am young as yet. Though she said she never considered me young, I am barely 30. There are moments when life, for no other reason than my own youth, beams with sweet hues upon me. It was time to go to the schoolroom. I went. That same schoolroom is rather pleasant in a morning. The sun then shines through the low lattice, the books are in order, there are no papers strewn about, the fire is clear and clean, no cinders have fallen, no ashes accumulated. I found Henry there, and he had brought with him Miss Keeldar. They were together. I said she was lovelier than ever. She is. A fine rose, not deep but delicate, opens on her cheek. Her eye, always dark, clear, and speaking, utters now a language I cannot render. It is the utterance, seen not heard, through which angels must have communed when there was silence in heaven. Her hair was always dusk as night and fine as silk, her neck was always fair, flexible, polished, but both have now a new charm. The tresses are soft as shadow, the shoulders they fall on wear a goddess grace. Once I only saw her beauty, now I feel it. Henry was repeating his lesson to her before bringing it to me. One of her hands was occupied with the book, he held the other. That boy gets more than his share of privileges, he dares caress and is caressed. What indulgence and compassion she shows him. Too much. If this went on, Henry in a few years, when his soul was formed, would offer it on her altar, as I have offered mine. I saw her eyelid flitter when I came in, but she did not look up. Now she hardly ever gives me a glance. She seems to grow silent too. To me she rarely speaks, and when I am present, she says little to others. In my gloomy moments I attribute this change to indifference, aversion, what not. In my sunny intervals I give it another meaning. I say, were I her equal, I could find in this shyness coyness, and in that coyness love. As it is, dare I look for it? What could I do with it if found? This morning I dared at least contrive an hour's communion for her and me. I dared not only wish but will an interview with her. I dared summon solitude to guard us. Very decidedly I called Henry to the door. Without hesitation I said, "Go where you will, my boy, but, till I call you, return not here." Henry, I could see, did not like his dismissal. That boy is young, but a thinker. His meditative eye shines on me strangely sometimes. He half feels what links me to Shirley, he half guesses that there is a dearer delight in the reserve with which I am treated than in all the endearments he is allowed. The young, lame, half-grown lion would growl at me now and then, because I have tamed his lioness and am her keeper, did not the habit of discipline and the instinct of affection hold him subdued. Go, Henry, you must learn to take your share of the bitter of life with all of Adam's race that have gone before or will come after you. Your destiny can be no exception to the common lot. Be grateful that your love is overlooked thus early, before it can claim any affinity to passion. An hour's fret, a pang of envy, suffice to express what you feel. Jealousy hot as the sun above the line, rage destructive as the tropic storm, the climb of your sensations ignores, as yet. I took my usual seat at the desk, quite in my usual way. I am blessed in that power to cover all inward ebullition with outward calm. No one who looks at my slow face can guess the vortex sometimes whirling in my heart, and engulfing thought and wrecking prudence. Pleasant is it to have the gift to proceed peacefully and powerfully in your course without alarming by one eccentric movement. It was not my present intention to utter one word of love to her, or to reveal one glimpse of the fire in which I wasted. Presumptuous I never have been, presumptuous I never will be. Rather than even seem selfish and interested, I would resolutely rise, gird my loins, part and leave her, and seek, on the other side of the globe, a new life, cold and barren as the rock the salt tide daily washes. My design this morning was to take of her a near scrutiny, to read a line in the page of her heart. Before I left I determined to know what I was leaving. I had some quills to make into pens. Most men's hands would have trembled when their hearts were so stirred. Mine went to work steadily, and my voice, when I called it into exercise, was firm. This day week you will be alone at Fieldhead, Miss Keeldar. Yes, I rather think my uncle's intention to go is a settled one now. He leaves you dissatisfied. He is not pleased with me. He departs as he came, no better for his journey. This is mortifying. I trust the failure of his plans will take from him all inclination to lay new ones. In his way Mr. Simpson honestly wished you well. All he has done or intended to do he believed to be for the best. You are kind to undertake the defense of a man who has permitted himself to treat you with so much insolence. I never feel shocked at, or bear malice for, what is spoken in character, and most perfectly in character was that vulgar and violent onset against me, when he had quitted you worsted. You cease now to be Henry's tutor? I shall be parted from Henry for a while. If he and I live, we shall meet again somehow, for we love each other, and be ousted from the bosom of the Simpson family forever. Happily, this change does not leave me stranded, it but hurries into premature execution designs long formed. No change finds you off your guard. I was sure, in your calm way, you would be prepared for sudden mutation. I always think you stand in the world like a solitary but watchful, thoughtful archer in a wood. And the quiver on your shoulder holds more arrows than one, your bow is provided with a second string. Such too is your brother's wont. You too might go forth homeless hunters to the loneliest western wilds, all would be well with you. The hewn tree would make you a hut, the cleared forest yield you fields from its stripped bosom, the buffalo would feel your rifle shot, and with lowered horns and hump pay homage at your feet. And any Indian tribe of Blackfeet or Flatheads would afford us a bride, perhaps? No, hesitating, I think not. The savage is sordid. I think, that is, I hope, you would neither of you share your hearth with that to which you could not give your heart. What suggested the Wild West to your mind, Miss Kildare? Have you been with me in spirit when I did not see you? Have you entered into my daydreams, and beheld my brain laboring at its scheme of a future? She had separated a slip of paper for lighting tapers, a spill, as it is called, into fragments. She threw morsel by morsel into the fire, and stood pensively watching them consume. She did not speak. How did you learn what you seem to know about my intentions? I know nothing. I am only discovering them now. I spoke at hazard. Your hazard sounds like divination. A tutor I will never be again, never take a pupil after Henry and yourself, not again will I sit habitually at another man's table, no more be the appendage of a family. I am now a man of 30, I have never been free since I was a boy of 10. I have such a thirst for freedom, such a deep passion to know her and call her mine, such a day desire and night longing to win her and possess her, I will not refuse to cross the Atlantic for her sake, her I will follow deep into virgin woods. Mine it shall not be to accept a savage girl as a slave, she could not be a wife. I know no white woman whom I love that would accompany me, but I am certain liberty will await me, sitting under a pine. When I call her she will come to my log house, and she shall fill my arms. She could not hear me speak so unmoved, and she was moved. It was right, I meant to move her. She could not answer me, nor could she look at me. I should have been sorry if she could have done either. Her cheek glowed as if a crimson flower through whose petals the sun shone had cast its light upon it. On the white lid and dark lashes of her downcast eye trembled all that is graceful in the sense of half-painful, half-pleasing shame. Soon she controlled her emotion, and took all her feelings under command. I saw she had felt insurrection, and was waking to empire. She sat down. There was that in her face which I could read. It said, I see the line which is my limit, nothing shall make me pass it. I know how far I may reveal my feelings, and when I must clasp the volume. I have advanced to a certain distance, as far as the true and sovereign and undegraded nature of my kind permits, now here I stand rooted. My heart may break if it is baffled, let it break. It shall never dishonor me, it shall never dishonor my sisterhood in me. Suffering before degradation. Death before treachery. I, for my part, said, if she were poor, I would be at her feet, if she were lowly, I would take her in my arms. Her gold and her station are two griffins that guard her on each side. Love looks and longs, and dares not, passion hovers round, and is kept at bay, truth and devotion are scared. There is nothing to lose in winning her, no sacrifice to make. It is all clear gain, and therefore unimaginably difficult. Difficult or not, something must be done, something must be said. I could not, and would not, sit silent with all that beauty modestly mute in my presence. I spoke thus, and still I spoke with calm. Quiet as my words were, I could hear they fell in a tone distinct, round, and deep. Still, I know I shall be strangely placed with that mountain nymph Liberty. She is, I suspect, akin to that solitude which I once wooed, and from which I now seek a divorce. These Oreads are peculiar. They come upon you with an unearthly charm, like some starlight evening. They inspire a wild but not warm delight. Their beauty is the beauty of spirits, their grace is not the grace of life, but of seasons or scenes in nature. Theirs is the dewy bloom of morning, the languid flush of evening, the peace of the moon, the changefulness of clouds. I want and will have something different. The selfish splendor looks chill to my vision, and feels frozen to my touch. I am not a poet, I cannot live with abstractions. You, Miss Kildare, have sometimes, in your laughing satire, called me a material philosopher, and implied that I live sufficiently for the substantial. Certainly I feel material from head to foot, and glorious as nature is, and deeply as I worship her with the solid powers of a solid heart, I would rather behold her through the soft human eyes of a loved and lovely wife than through the wild orbs of the highest goddess of Olympus.